This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And we are back for another edition of the Primetime Podcast right here on Most Valuable Podcast. And Brandon, I don't know about you. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. I walked in today and I was like, did we do a podcast last week? Like, it has seemed like forever since you and I have done a podcast, even though it has been one full week since we have done a podcast.
I do that. I've been doing that probably for the last 4 to 5 weeks.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Did we do a podcast last week? I almost don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know if that's good or that's bad, but that's how I felt today. But we did.
There's so much that happens in between those days. That in that week, a ton happens. Like this past Thursday felt like 3 days in one for me.
Oh, dude, this Saturday felt like 3 days in one. Did 3 podcasts in that day. That's why it felt like 3 days in one. But welcome to the Primetime Podcast right here on Most Valuable Podcast. This is where we talk about college basketball, college football, NBA draft, NFL draft, and we get you guys set up for those. Little housekeeping before we get into what we're going to talk about. If you like what we're doing here on the channel, if you're new, if you're old, you like what we're doing, check out patreon.com/mostvaluable. I was going to say if you don't like it, but hey, if you like it, if you don't like it, check out patreon.com/mostvaluable podcast. We're going to have Matt on next week, one of our patrons. How do you become like Patrick and Matthew? You check out the Patreon page down below. Also, if you want an MVP t-shirt, that link is also in the description for our store. We're also on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Go give the Primetime Podcast a 5-star rating. It would mean the world to us. And then go ahead and bookmark mostvaluablepodcast.com. That's where we put everything for MVP each and every day. But Brandon, we got a jam-packed show, as I usually like to say. Starting off with college basketball, a topic that you wanted to talk about as soon as before the final buzzer sounded. You sent me a text saying you wanted to talk about Villanova and if they should be considered one of the greatest teams of all time with the little run that they've had in the past 3 years with the 2 national championship appearances. Then we're going to look at NFL draft the rest of the show. We're going to dive into Shaquem Griffin because I'll be honest, I don't know what his stock exactly is, where he will be drafted because of his situation. We're going to dive into that. And then we're going to do something we have not done. And we've talked enough about Saquon Barkley. We're going to talk about the other running backs that are behind Saquon Barkley and kind of rank them and tell you who we like, who we don't like. But Brandon, we're going to jump in college basketball. The question is, should modern Villanova, so we're saying like the recent Villanova team, should they be considered a greatest of all time team? What do you think?
I think that you can really, and people will probably disagree with me heavily on this, but I think that you can put them into the category of one of the best runs ever and one of the best teams in terms of teams that are not one-and-done teams. If you look at their last 5 years, they won 2 national championships, 4 Big East titles, 165 wins, 3 times a number 1 seed, 5 top 2 seeds. You haven't seen that type of run, that type of 5-year run in quite some time. They did not lose, obviously, 1 game in their tournament run. They did not lose they won every single game by double digits. And they lost 4 games all season long. They didn't lose any game by more than 8 points. This team and this culture, I think it's the culture that's bigger for Villanova. They come in and they know the culture. And Jay Wright has said it multiple times. And if you watch any interviews, you watch any documentary bits, you either want to come to Villanova or you do not want to come to Villanova. You either like that culture and you can fit right into it, or you do not. And I think that John Calipari over at Kentucky has kind of said the same type of thing. And we talked about that, I think, a little bit when we compared Duke and Kentucky there. But you're gonna come to Kentucky for one reason or another. You come to Kentucky, we're gonna make sure you get to the NBA, everything like that, blah blah blah. You go to Duke, there's going to be the Duke way. You're going to be set for life. You go to Duke. So I think that when you look at Villanova, are they the absolute, if you look and you rank every single team all time, are they the absolute best college program ever? No. No, I think by far it's probably Kentucky based on how many national championships they have and how many wins they have. But can you say that Villanova is the best team, has been the best team of the last 5 years? Absolutely. Villanova currently right now, they are, I think, clearly the best team, and they have been the best team in college basketball for that time span.
Now, with me, here's the thing. First off, the title of this on YouTube is going to bring people in, and they're going to be like, no, obviously they're not the greatest team of all time. There's a little clickbaitiness to the title that we have done. But here's the problem that I have with Villanova, where in the if we're looking microcosm last 3 years, it's been a little nice run. You make it to the national, so you win the national championship 2 years ago, then you lose in the second round, and then you win the championship. So you're 2-1 with that second year being a second round. But the thing that I look at is Villanova. Obviously, they're not one of the greatest teams of all time, in my opinion. This could be one of the best runs that we've seen in the tournament. But for me, as Villanova right now, I think it's too early to look at this modern Villanova and kind of judge where they're going, because Villanova, for me, they've been a part of the Big East since I can remember, and Jay Wright has been there since 2001. So he's had a tenure of being at Villanova. It's not like he's just brand new. And besides, early on, he had a few regional semifinals, regional finals, but since, 2010 until the 2016 national tournament, Villanova was always a team. So basically, I'm dating myself here. So from my second year, my sophomore year of college until 2015, 2016, Villanova was always a team where when I was filling out my bracket, just one and done. Have them win the first one, lose the second one, you'll be fine. Don't let them go to the national championship. They're only going to break your heart. Don't pick them. But, Ricky, they're a number 1 seed. Don't pick them. They're a one-and-done team. You know better than that. That was obviously broken a little bit in 2013, 2014, and the year after when they went to the second weekend, but lost in the Sweet 16. But this is a team that in the last 3 years have proven that they can go far in the national tournament, with that second year, 2016, 2017, kind of being the only outlier. It's funny, though, to me, and this is off a little bit, it's funny to me that both North Carolina and Villanova in the last 3 years have gone to 2 national championship games and have been bounced in the second round. For NC, it was lose to Villanova, then win the whole thing the next year, then get bounced in the second round this year. So they're kind of on the same track in the last 3 years. But the thing that I think keeps them from greatest of all time, and we don't know if this is going to get answered because this could be the beginning of something special. But like I look back to, I'm looking at North Carolina right now, and there was a time between, of course, this is before you and I were born, Brandon, but I mean, you look between the 1981 tournament and the 93 national tournament, NC was in either the regional semifinal, the regional final, or the national final. They were either Elite Eight, Final Four, or national championship. You could do the same thing with Kentucky in the early 90s, where they went to the national championship game a few years in a row. So there have been teams that have made it farther more consistently. And see, that's the problem I have with Villanova if we're going to put the program in that next level. Was this year in 2016 a fluke? Fluke's not a word I want to use. Was it consistent, or was this like, okay, you had just a really good team, but let's be honest, you're a team that gets through the Big East, you have 30 wins in your 30 wins because of the conference you play in, but when we put you in the tournament, you get bounced in the second game of the national tournament. It's like, which team are you? I don't know if I definitively want to say you're out of that rut completely if you're Villanova.
Well, I think if you look at the last, and the reason why I say the last 5 years, and I guess you could even say 6, it's that they started to find some consistency. So 6 years ago, 2012-13, lost second round. 13-14 lost third round. 14-15 lost third round. They're going pretty far.
Yeah.
15-16, they won, obviously, the national championship. In 16-17, they lost that second round. And in 17-18, of course, this past season, they win it all again. I think that's pretty consistent. I think it's pretty consistent. If you're not winning it all, you're going deep. You're going deep in the tournament. And, of course, it's always to win it all. It's to make the Sweet 16. It's to get to the Elite Eight. They're doing exactly that, and they've been doing exactly that for the last 5 to 6 years. I think that all of that, plus 2 national championships, you can't ask for a whole lot more. You can ask for a national championship every year. That's about as unrealistic as it gets. But that's why Villanova, to me, again, I would agree with you. I don't think that they're the best program ever, but something clicked with Jay Wright a couple of years ago when they were only getting to the second round, losing, where they weren't making it past game 2, losing, where they were that, okay, yep, they're the number 1, like you said, and no one took them seriously. No one took that number 1 seriously for a long time. And I think something clicked with him, and he realized he had to go back to the culture that Villanova was built on and recruit based on that culture. And that's when it got to the whole, you're going to either want to come here because you want to be part of the Villanova culture, or you're not going to come here because you don't want to be part of that. And I think once he got back to that, they started to win again. They played well as a team. You could see how well they play as a team. They have really good teammates on that team. Again, they get to know each other really well because for the most part, they stay in school. How about Ryan Archidiakono? How about Josh Hart? How about Jalen Brunson? I mean, these are all guys who they're staying past 2 years or staying all 4 years. Now, Mikal Bridges, I know, is an exception to that. It will be an exception to that. Remarkable player. But these guys have played well, very, very well together and have played with each other for a long time, or did play with each other for a long time. And Jay Wright has done such a great job of building a program that's not, again, for the most part, not a one-and-done program. And I think possibly the best non-one-and-done program in the country, certainly over the last 5 years, and possibly farther, just because of how the team is. I mean, you look at, of course, you look at the Kentuckys, you look at the Dukes. They are almost always going to win because they are getting absolute NBA talent. Could have probably gone in high school, but will certainly go after their first year.
And that's the one thing I want to interject is usually these schools, because now I'm going to call the Big East a smaller conference now, ever since the UConns and Syracuse's left that conference. Usually these smaller conference teams have less one-and-done teams and more guys that like, oh, we have juniors, seniors, more experienced players. Where how many teams did we have, like UMBC when they beat Virginia? How many times did you hear the announcers say, well, this UMBC team is very experienced. They got a lot of juniors and seniors. Yeah. Or like you're talking about Loyola, where it's like, oh, these guys are experienced, juniors and seniors, and they're not freshmen.
And those are also, a lot of the times, the schools and the teams that have guys that, you know, one, maybe they're not even going to the NBA. Two, if they're going to the NBA, they'll, you know, maybe eventually be signed, picked up, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But but I think that's also realized.
Let's be honest. Archidiakono only has a job in the NBA because the Bulls need to suck. That's the only reason why he has a roster spot.
Well, again, I mean, I think that but people understand that. What I'm saying is people understand that. You go to Duke and you go to Kentucky because you are a top talent.
It's a pathway to the NBA.
They are. That is exactly what they are. I mean, you're driving along the highway. You see Duke and you see Kentucky, pathway to the NBA here. I mean, it's lit up.
Exit 1, exit 2.
But if you want to play and have a fun 4 years and win 30 games each year, Villanova's on the other side. They're on the other side of the highway. I mean, but but guys know that. That's, again, the culture. You want that culture or you don't. You realize you're going to be a one-and-done player, and if you do, most likely you're not going to go to Villanova. Maybe you do, again, Bridges. But I think that if we look at who Duke just recently signed, all their 3 recruits that they just signed. I mean, do you think
they're
that
reloading?
They're reloading. But do you think that we see those guys go past 1 year? No, you don't. But now, if Villanova signs 3 guys, most likely at least 2 out of the 3 are going 3 years or more. So that's why I'm more impressed with Villanova, because they're not doing it. They're not doing it with guys that are coming in that are going to make them this huge powerhouse for a year, and then they'll reload for the next one. They've built a program, whereas I think that Calipari and Krzyzewski, they've got guys there. They've built a nice system, but not necessarily the program that a guy like Jay Wright has built.
Here's the thing I want to mention, and going back to the tournaments, where this year was something special for Villanova. You beat the 16th seed 87-61. Then a Colin Sexton Alabama team. Get out of here, 81-58.
Can you name any other players on the Alabama team?
No, I cannot, because Alabama was just Colin Sexton. Let's be completely honest. A lot of them fouled out, and Colin Sexton still got the job done. 4-on-5 basketball. Then West Virginia, they beat that team. That game was close throughout. I was watching that one, and I was praying because, please, I picked West Virginia. Please let me be right. Please let me be right. And then Villanova pulled away, and I'm like, fuck, and I changed the channel. They won 90-78. Then a Texas Tech team that offense was cruising throughout the tournament. Tough game against Florida that they had in the second round. Villanova says, get out of here, 71-59. I've gone back, though, and it's funny because looking through the last 5 years, so the 13-14 season, the one that you brought up, the one-and-done performance, they beat Milwaukee. They were a 2 seed. Beat the 15th seed. Then lost to UConn. I'm going to quiz you here. 2014, do you know how far UConn went that year? Take a wild guess.
I'm just going to say they won it.
They went all the way. That was Shabazz Napier.
I couldn't remember the years. Honestly, 2014 feels like 10 years ago.
I feel like that was I want to say that was the Kevin Ollie year.
Kevin Ollie.
That was the one where Shabazz Napier was the most valuable player of the tournament. Yeah, that was the Kevin Ollie championship where he won it with Coach Calhoun's players. Sean will tell you that till the day he dies. Then the 2015, they get bounced in the second round again. Who did they lose to? The 8th seed NC State. This one I think is the fluke, and you'll hear why in a second. Because NC State, they just got bounced by Louisville the next game. Then you go on to 2016. Villanova obviously won the whole thing in 2016. Teams that they beat on the way. They blew out an Iowa team, 87-69. Blew out a Miami, a Florida team, 2-7, now a 2-3, 92-69. And then they beat Kansas, the Kansas rule too of whoever wins that matchup, Kansas-Villanova, the winner goes on to win that national championship. 2008, Kansas beat Villanova. Kansas then beat Memphis, Derrick Rose in the championship. Villanova this year beat Kansas 64-59, went on to win the whole thing over North Carolina. We know what happened in 2018, but 2017, they played a Wisconsin team, which, if I am not mistaken, that Wisconsin team was also a team that was pretty veteran heavy and wasn't just we're just a bunch of freshmen. So, I mean, that's the season where I use that NC State as, that's the fluke season, because they're either winning it all and blowing out teams while they do it. The Kansas one was the only blowout, not blowout in 2016. But otherwise, it's like, wow, we lost to a team that won it all, or wow, we lost to a team that had experienced players. So, really, the fluke was 2015 when they lost to NC State.
So, Are you saying that?
I'm saying they're a good team. I'm saying
You are saying
the last
they are a
5
good team.
years.
Okay, I couldn't tell with what you were saying.
No.
It wasn't making sense to me if you were going one way or another.
What I am saying is, based on the tournament games, you need a really good, experienced team to beat Villanova. That's what you need. You need that because
it makes sense.
You look at UConn, they won it all, and Shabazz Napier went. Like, Shabazz Napier channeled his inner Kemba Walker that year and went off. They had all their role players working that one, too. I believe that was the UConn team that had Ryan Boatwright from West Aurora out here in the Chicagoland, well, the suburb area of Chicago by us. And you go through with the Wisconsin team, very veteran-heavy team, I believe, that year. That NC State team's the only one where it's like, really? You lost to NC State? That's the team you lost to? Otherwise, they were winning it all. So I would say, based on looking at them, this Villanova team has been trending up, and this might be the beginning of them getting on a solid run, but how is college basketball going to change, and our team's going to go more towards that experience side, except for like the Kentuckys and the Dukes, where they're just going to say, screw it. Like, Cal, screw it. I'm just going to do my one and dones because that's what works for me.
And you know what? That's okay, and it does work for him. It does work for him. It does work for Krzyzewski. But what works for Jay Wright is the other side. What works for him is veterans. What works for him is a team that is built off of guys that have been there a long time and have that experience. So I think that, it really comes down to your scheme, what's going to work best for you, and that you just go with that. And you don't, I don't think, verge off the path that you've set for yourself, that you believe in, the culture that you've set and that you put in place. And I think Jay Wright, again, I think he did that for a little bit, but then he finally got back to it. And then he found that he was winning again. And he found that he was being able to put together some really good programs with some really good players. So I believe that we're going to continue to see this Villanova team be a very strong, solid, competitive team. And not just because that they're in the Big East and people, will dog on the Big East and say that they're weak, and they certainly are not the ACC. I get that, but the Big East has still had some competitive teams in years past. So I think that Villanova going down the road farther, they're going to continue to be, as long as they have Jay Wright at the helm, which I believe they will. They're going to continue to be a very strong basketball team, very good. And I think even, wasn't it, Ricky, the Big East was the conference that was trying to get the rule set for you have to stay at least 2 years.
No, they are.
So
we
again,
talked about that.
They're trying to make sure that they're not getting any one and done players, and they're getting guys to at least be in their systems for 2 years, so they can hopefully win not just once, but twice with them and be able to build off of that. And by having those hopefully good players in their minds, bring in other guys who want to play with them and be part of that team.
Well, and the thing that I'm just looking up now is, so that 2016-2017 Wisconsin team that beat them, Nigel Hayes was a senior that year. Bronson Coing was a senior that year. You also had guys like Jordan Hill, who had a big tournament. He was a redshirt junior that year. Ethan Happ was a redshirt sophomore. So those are guys, I'm a junior, but I've been here for 4 years. I'm a sophomore, but I've been here for 3 years. So that was still, it wasn't the Frank Kaminsky Wisconsin team that went all the way, but it was still a veteran-heavy Wisconsin team. So really, that's what it needs. Like, looking at it, that's what it needs to take to beat this Villanova team. Otherwise, like we saw this year, they're going all the way. They're winning it all. And I'm not saying that the teams they played were chopped liver. That West Virginia team, was a veteran-heavy team too, and a disciplined team, especially on the defensive end. But I think with Villanova, am I ready to call them a GOAT team? No. But I think this is the beginning of what Jay Wright, he's been there since 2001, but this is the beginning of more consistency, and they're not just going to be that one-and-done team in the tournament. But I want to, before the camera shuts off on me, I want to ask you guys what you think. Let me know down below. Let us know. I always say me. I'm always thinking about myself. Sorry about that, Brandon.
Rude.
But let us
rude.
know what you think down below in the comment section. What do you think of Villanova? Are they a GOAT team? Probably not, but I still want to hear your answer, and let us know what you think of this little run. The last 5 years, like Brandon brought up, with Villanova and their tournament success. Let us know what you think down below in that comment section.